Can you tell us, in terms of, first of all, what came first? Was it the books or the TV show?
Books came first.
The books came first.
Books have been around since, I think, 1993. And I was asked by Lion Television if I would make them into a TV show. So Dominic Brigstock, who's the director, and I sat down in an office for 3 months and looked at them and thought, how are we going to make this into a TV show? And came up with the idea of sort of mixing historical sketches and modern formats and those sorts of things. And we wrote a big document that said, this is what we want it to be like. And it's like we wrote down, only about 100 times better. Thanks to everybody who works on the show. So, yeah.
Obviously, it's been made for CBBC, who are fantastic and fund a lot of kids shows, but they haven't got, in terms of sort of big budget you might. If you say if you're in America, you'd be working on kind of millions in your budget. I know it's a tight budget, but I mean, as we've just shown by showing it on the big screen here, I mean, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's thanks to we shoot it on HD now, but it looks like that because the people who do all our post-production things just put so much work into it. It isn't a big budget, but everybody does what I think they say on the X Factor, gives it 150%, and everybody really loves it, and so there's a huge amount of love that goes into that. It's worth a lot more than the budget suggests. But CBBC are really I think the great thing about doing it for CBBC is that they give you the money and then they say, right, make the best show for the audience, and they don't really stick their noses in too much. And what that means is that everybody who works on the show feels that they can make their contribution, and therefore everyone feels like they own a bit of it. And I think that really helps to make a show that's that everybody, there's a lot of love in.
And in terms of all the kind of the costumes and the makeup, there's an awful lot of people involved behind the scenes who are making this happen.
Yeah.
And that isn't cheap either in terms of, I mean, are you borrowing costumes or making costumes?
The big sort of Georgian and Victorian costumes tend to be hires, and I think the ones that Martha wears for Elizabeth I tend to they're all things that have appeared in Elizabeth I movies. So we get them from costume hire places, but Roz, who does our costumes, is really clever. She gets our Roman armour, she gets made in Bulgaria, and she's right at the moment, she's working in Morocco on a big adaptation of the Bible. So she does a lot of work doing things like that, and she knows where to get shoes made and authentic costumes made. So they're really clever. I don't really quite know how they do it. It's a little bit of magic that goes on in their van. And
Martha was saying before, one of the joys of playing Elizabeth I for you is that you actually don't need any makeup at all. I mean, Martha, can you tell us about being made up for Elizabeth I?
Yeah, I can. It takes about 3 hours to do. Sort of, they put like latex on your face to make you all pock-marked and hideous, and then paint over like white makeup and the wig and everything. Everything takes about 3 hours. But the longest I've had is 4 hours for Queen Victoria, which will be later in the series, because it's a big neck and hideous other bits and pieces that they stick on me. But yeah, it's about 3 hours for Elizabeth.
One of the things that's interesting about sort of meeting you all is that we're so used to seeing you on screen in so many different guises that actually to see you as you are is kind of quite different in some respects. And in terms of when you all came to the show, I know some of you do bits of writing, and I mean you're all very involved in the whole production, aren't you?
We at different stages. Where Larry does a lot of writing for the show.
Yeah, that was my. I came to the show initially as a writer, and then if you hang around enough, and if you look silly enough in a beard, they'll say, "Can you stand in front of the camera and look silly with a beard?" And you go.
Larry wrote the Bob reports, and at the end, we were filming it right at the end of the first series, and I just looked at them and I just said, I can't ask anyone to learn these, they're all knackered. And I said, right, Larry, you've written them. That's what happens to him. He writes things like, there is a man covered in poo, and I go, right, well, you've written it, so...
Yeah.
And one of the things about the show definitely is it's not a show that you want to be eating when you're watching, as I found to my kind of disquiet last week. I mean, there is a lot of poo and vomit and wee and other stuff in it. And
which, ironically, is usually food.
Is it? Well, yeah. That was what I was going to ask you. I mean, can you kind of reassure us that you're not using the real thing?
The poo is mostly Mars bar, isn't it, and Snickers.
Yeah.
So it's food.
It's all right.
It's all right.
I quite look forward to those guys.
Could be worse.
Yeah.
You just need to make sure you don't get them mixed up, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
You realise pretty quickly.
Yeah. Crops don't hate us that much.
I mean, without wanting to kind of go into too much detail, I mean, you said like the poos are often sort of Mars and Snickers. I mean, what are the other things that kind of create the?
They use kind of gelatin and soup for sick.
Vegetable soup, cold vegetable soup.
Sounds it's a good name for a band.
Cold vegetable soup.
Which actually makes you feel sick as well.
Yeah, it does.
It's horrible.
And I guess particularly, I mean, I don't know how quickly the program is shooting, but I guess if you're doing a scene with a vomit scene and it's being shot several times, that was probably not the nicest scene to shoot.
Yeah, well, we did a scene in series 2, was it, or 3?
Two.
When
Vomited
Larry got
cows.
vomited on by cows. That was the sketch. And it
Training
was
those cows
freezing
to-
cold on top of a hill.
Yeah.
The boat we have, we film it on top of a hill, so there's no horizon, so we can be at sea. And you were covered in sick all morning, weren't you?
Yeah, repeatedly, and then every time you think, oh, we've got it now, they go, actually, we could do with another angle
Yeah,
on this,
just more.
and they bring on another
You
bucket
didn't
of
even write
sea.
that one.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
And then we had to go, because we were on the hill in the middle of nowhere on a farm, they said there is a shower, but you have to sort of go to the farmhouse and ask the lady, basically.
With name and I, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Who thankfully said yes.
Yeah.
And Caroline, when the sketches are being written, or even after they've been filmed, is there a point where there is somebody who will say, actually, no, you have pushed it too far, or this needs to be cut,
Yeah.
or this is no?
Yeah, she's here. Well, it's kind of partly my job, and then all the scripts then go to Melissa, who's our executive producer at CBBC, and she looks at everything and comes back, and we have it's a line you've got to. There's a balance between telling the truth about what happened in history. A lot of those things are things that CBBC doesn't normally talk about, or doesn't normally make jokes about, because in most contexts it's not funny. But because we're trying to tell historical fact, we try and find the right side of the line to be on, to tell it in a way that that gets the story across, but is still acceptable viewing. So yeah, I mean there are debates, but generally we know where the line is, and we try to say the right side of it. No, you haven't. People do send me scripts, and I go, you can't do that.
And in terms of deciding who's going to play which characters, having done 4 seasons, is it the point now where you just know, well, it's that kind of character that's going to be Jim, or is that, or how does that kind of work out?
The brilliant thing about the cast is that one of the most fun things is just going, you have an automatic. Well, that would probably be that person, that one. But it's really good fun casting against type, because what's great about the cast is they can play anything. And actually, sometimes to cast in an unexpected way is what makes the sketches feel really fresh. So, we try and mix it up.
When you all get the scripts, does it say this is who's going to play what, or do you get the chance to kind of pitch in for who you want to be?
No, we get, it is all cast separately when we have a read-through rehearsal, but you do get sketch jealousy. A lot. Because you look at something and go, I'd love to have a go at that. And then it doesn't fall your way. But that's just, there are hundreds of sketches. So.
I mean, that's why things like that,
it works
that
out
song
in the end.
are so much fun, because you go, right, that's a lot of idiots together getting to be equally stupid, and so there's no.
A lot of it's to do with the scheduling. I mean, just how we film it. It literally is. I remember Matt saying to me he was wondering how we did it, and I just said, well, you were in that sketch, and then you couldn't be in the next sketch because we couldn't get you changed in time. That was literally why you're not in that sketch. So a lot of it's that,
well. And are you kind of doing a whole lot like Viking in one block and then Victoria's another block? Is that how it works? Or?
It's more about the location,
locations,
isn't it? That determines kind of what we film. So if it's a location that we can
Greek
work.
Week. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's called Greek Week. It happens every year. We're in loincloths. It's
Quarry.
freezing. We've got a whole body tan.
Yeah.
Orange bed sheets.
Greek Week.
You go in, it's very, very cold, and it's still dark when you arrive on location. You're in the middle of a chalk quarry, and you go into what we call the Loserbago. and your costume is so small, it hasn't got a hanger, it's got a peg. And then you know it's Greek Week.
A tiny thong.
Yeah.
Just go, great. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
One thing that's very unusual about the show, particularly from a sort of CBBC perspective, is that actually you kind of made that breakthrough, both in terms of winning awards and the kind of you won like a BAFTA award outside the BAFTA Children's Award, which you've already have won stuff, and you've also had this opportunity recently where you were like Sunday kind of tea time television on BBC One with Stephen Fry kind of linking it. How did that come about, and then that kind of that breakthrough?
I always said I wanted to make a show that people would say was too good for children, because I think that's what children's television should be. It should be like really high quality television. And so what we did was we just got together all the people that we knew were really good at their jobs and persuaded them to do it on a slightly smaller budget. And then we got some really good scripts. In fact, the first script you ever wrote that we used for the auditions, which when Matt came in and read it, we said, let's hire Matt. And it's in this series.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it might be in the might even be in episode 2. It's the train guard sketch. I think it's in the second. I think it's in the second episode, and we got some really, really good material. And then because we had great sketches, we sent them out, and loads of really good actors came back and said, "Oh, I want to be in it." And so we got a fantastic cast. And it was just, you know, if you start with really high ambitions, I think you can really build on that. And everybody involved with the show wants it to be really good. And what we do is we make comedy that we know children will laugh at, but we make sure that it also makes us laugh. We never say, "Oh, that's fine, it's for kids, it'll be fun." It has to be funny as well.